Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm Matt Brockwell and joined as ever by Steve Carroll. Afternoon, Steve.
Afternoon.
I say afternoon because we've managed to grab an hour or so to get this one done. We have missed a few games, Steve. We got to catch up on, and to be honest, there was a part of me that thought, let's never record a podcast again, because last time we spoke after that late conceded goal against QPR to rob us of the 3 points. Since then, 4 in a row.
Yeah, you could maybe say we're a bit of a curse, and maybe we should be eating humble pie live on air at the moment. But yeah, quite the turnaround. I mean, we're a bizarre club, aren't we? I mean, we look at last season where there was the bad start, then we had 7 wins in 9, and then about 3 in 20, ended with 7 in 9, and then we started this season with no wins in 7, and now we've won 4 in a row. I just don't really understand. Why can't we be a bit more middle of the road and like consistent rather than making us think one way and then you change your mind, and then when you change your mind something else tends to happen and you're tempted to change it back. It's all just a little bit strange, isn't it? But look, things are a lot better than when we last recorded, and well, there's no complaints there, is there?
Can't have any complaints. The only thing I would say that differs between that Russell Martin hot and cold era, if you like, and this is that we have been pre-warned that Duff starts slow. He started slow at Barnsley, he started slow at Cheltenham before that, and both times when they started going, they both went on great runs. So there's a reason to be optimistic that this isn't going to be a flash in the pan, like you mentioned, those spells in the Russell Martin would be excellent, then dire, then excellent again, for long periods. This could well be the sign of what he had at Barnsley and Cheltenham, where things just started to click into place, players bought into his methods, and hopefully there's a positive sign of what's to come.
Yeah, I think I'd say particularly the last 2 games. I mean, we'll go on to discuss them all in detail, I'm sure, but I think I saw signs in those 2 in particular that were encouraging. I mean, maybe not so much in Sheffield Wednesday, because I think we were playing a very poor side really, but yeah, there's definitely reasons to be optimistic. As you say, Duff has started poorly in his 2 other jobs and improved, so as ever, time will tell, really, won't it? But I do think he was fairly close to losing his job. You'd have to say now he's pretty much safe as houses, isn't he? So, that's the situation we're in. And from what I believe, there were clear the air talks behind the scenes, and it's led to some backing down on his part. And we have seen the reward from that, really, I would say. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm more than happy to be wrong if it means that we're doing well. So that's the most important thing, really, isn't it?
I think that's what we said. We said this before we started recording, didn't we? Like, is obviously the elephant in the room is the hypocrisy of it. If I say last podcast, he's got to go, and then this part. I mean, when we started talking in pre-season, and in fact the date we mentioned was October international break. This break we're coming into now would be the perfect time to sit back on this podcast and assess where things are going. That's what we'll do tonight. But it was a lot of stuff, the rumblings going on behind the scenes, someone who's in and around the club, or multiple people in and around the club, disgruntled with the way things were getting out, which, doesn't help anyone, but it all looked like, if you couple that with what was going on the pitch, it did look like writing was on the wall. It really did, didn't it? It looked like, well, he hasn't won in 7. We're hearing about everything that's gone on behind the scenes. Surely this is a ticking time bomb now that eventually will catch up with him. But fair play, we talk about the clear the air talks. I mean, he said after the Cardiff game, which was bitterly disappointing, it was about characters. It was about talking about, this is where you'll see who goes hiding and who stands up. And to be fair, to a man, everyone has.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a change, isn't it? I mean, as we were talking previously, weren't we? It's very rare that a team like us would win 4 in a row anyway. No. We did do it once last season, around a similar time, wasn't it, in October? But I mean, unless you're like a top club, I mean, it is very difficult to put a string of wins together like that. I mean, maybe, an unbeaten run so much isn't as tough. But yeah, to win 4 in a row, after you've been on a shocking run really is some doing. So it's been quite the turnaround, hasn't it? But
if you thought, sorry to jump in, if you thought about the 5 games, if you include QPR in there, that's 13 points out of 15, with 3 of the 5 being away. I mean, it does look like, there's pieces to the puzzle there which, we needed to be a lot more resolute at the back. We needed to be. So what we did, we conceded 1 at QPR, we conceded 1 against Norwich, and we conceded 1 against Plymouth. So in 5 games, we conceded 3 goals. And we're scoring.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that if you're right to pinpoint that game, because obviously that's where we changed formation.
Yeah.
And went to a back 4 and we started playing with wide men again. Which I've always
argued. How long have we
argued.
been saying that for?
Yeah, which is
it's fucking 2.5 years.
Which is the true Swansea way, isn't it? And I must admit, I did think that he was sort of gambling on it because it was almost like a last throw of the dice.
Last year, Humphrey's left back, and we were thinking, you've got time on. I don't understand.
But I thought playing Lowe and Janelli out wide, there was nothing wrong with that.
No.
I mean, that was a good move.
They're our fastest players, right?
Yeah, exactly, and you did have the option of doing that now. I know obviously we're now struggling because of what's happened to Janelli, but I think that's the main thing. It does show that it's just playing a different formation has been quite an important part
I'm
of it.
glad you mentioned it because fucking hell, it's so important. The 5, Steve, or the 3, whatever.
Yeah,
I never want to see it again.
Well, the problem is though, due to injuries of personnel, I would be surprised if we maybe don't have to use it again at some point. I mean, unless we bring somebody in.
Well, I mean,
because
if the guy is prepared to leave a tried and tested left back on the bench to put a centre back out left, then I think he will stick with this formation until maybe the results stop coming in. Because I mean, I can't see him changing it willingly. But I know what you mean.
I don't know. He might do it. I do think he might do it for the next game, partially because of who we're playing. And I think
it doesn't make us more resolute at the back.
No, not necessarily. But I think it also depends on what the fitness situation is like with certain players, doesn't it? Now after the international break. So, look, I think in general this will be what we do, but I wouldn't be convinced we'll never see it again.
Because I would say you look at the change in the likes of both Darling and Cabango. Let's name them both, and I think it's no surprise to me that those two have come on leaps and bounds since going back into back 4. It's old traditional defending. They know where their jobs are. They're not caught between a left centre back, a right centre back, and kind of drifting out wide to cover the winger because the left and right wing backs are up the pitch and all the problems we saw under the previous regime. But when you've got this kind of the centre halves are marking the strikers, they don't really venture out of that 15-yard zone, do they? They kind of mark their men and they make sure that nothing gets past them.
It's always just been a bit more obvious whose job is what.
Absolutely.
I think, whereas I did see a lot of with, a back 5, probably mainly under Martin as opposed to Duff as such, people not seeming to understand who they should be with. They'd be caught out of shape.
On the counter.
And you're getting caught then anyway, and you tend to concede from it. But look, I do think a back 4 does work better in general, so that's certainly something to be positive about. But also, we are a lot stronger at fullback than we have been.
Yeah.
There's depth there, so that's an encouraging thing for us as well. It's just now the one thing we don't really have in abundance is wide players, so that could cause a problem. But look,
something we need to look at, I think.
But we signed the squad, didn't we, to play wing backs? That's the problem. So inevitably you've then neglected wide players. And now we've decided to play with them.
I think there's what we have done really well is we've signed a squad capable of just taking a few injuries, which we've taken more than a few injuries. But when you look at the likes of Josh Tyman and you look at the likes of Key on the other side, you think both of them could play higher up the pitch. I think they both have the attributes to start in a wider attacking position.
They could. I mean, if you look at Plymouth on the weekend, I mean, if you'd ask most people who weren't there, I'll say, because it's probably the best way of describing it, because the goal scorer was on the other side of the pitch that went Patterson past it, no one probably would have guessed that it would have been Josh Key, would they? So, and that's a compliment to him in terms of what his running was like and desperation to get there. So, yeah, I do. I'm not saying long term. I'm not saying long term these guys can necessarily play there, but can they probably do a job over a couple of games or anything like that if they need to? Yeah, possibly. I think, and that's got to be a good thing. So,
and that's one thing that we do have is numbers. I mean, last season we were putting youth players on the bench and stuff like that. We do look like now we have a squad, and we've seen in all the games we're going to talk about here, Steve, bench players come on and have a positive impact? Where does it help to see the game out, or twisting that knife later on and just making sure? I mean, as recently as Plymouth, when Ollie Cooper came off the bench and scored within a minute, it's what you want if you're a manager is to have your starting 11 lay the foundations, and when you want to change it, you have that magic on the bench. That can be the difference sometimes between the teams that end up towards the upper echelons and those that struggle if you got the bench, isn't it?
Well, competition for places is always key. I mean, we had the situation last year where, for me, let's use Perot as an example.
Yeah.
I would say largely lacklustre for a lot of the season, but undroppable because there's nobody else.
Unless he was on 2. And then he'd take him off.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he was subbed against Birmingham, wasn't he? But in general, was never subbed. And you're just thinking, well, look, I got it in the second half of the season, particularly. But at the same time, you think sometimes, look, you just need someone there just to give you that boot up the backside. And in general, now we do have that, don't we? So, that's certainly one positive from the summer was that they did strengthen, and by and large, they got rid of our issues. So they certainly did until we decided to change formation anyway.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, how do you address it? As a manager, if you came in, you could do the Russ Martin thing, come in and go, right, this is what... Although he changed the style of play, he didn't actually change the formation in his 2 years here until the last 7 games, which is when he actually saw that upturn in form of the last 7 or 8 games, when you actually thought in the end we might have sneaked into the playoffs, and then we revert back to type in the summer when Michael Duff comes in with the 5. We've built the squad for the 5, and Michael Duff has also come to the realisation that the 4 allows us to be more solid, more adventurous in attack, because you've got allowed your attacking players to attack then. Well, we scored plenty of goals, Steve, as well. I mean, it's not been boring on the eye, is it, in terms of us attacking? We do look like a bit more adventurous than we have in a long time.
No, we've, like you say, going forward, it's been great, really, isn't it? I mean, I think we've created quite a few chances. I mean, I think like the Norwich game might be slightly skewed because a few of them were like goal line chances, and it's sort of stayed in there.
Only one of them can go in.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I'm not criticising that. It's encouraging that we've kept the ball in there.
Keep the ball alive.
Yeah,
that's not something we traditionally do.
Yeah, that is certainly a good thing. But look, our finishing has been pretty good, and the goals are getting shared round as well, aren't they? A lot of different goal scorers. So we should probably get into Sheffield Wednesday, shouldn't we? I think.
Well, this is probably the most uninspiring of the 4, but I think with hindsight now we can look back on it and think we just desperately need to win against a team that came down to the Swansea.com, Steve, and tried to play football, and for the large parts of the first half did play decent football against them. I remember saying to you at the time, whilst they're trying, you can see the lack of quality.
But they were definitely trying. You could see. I was almost looking at their manager and thinking, like, he'd actually suit a team that wants to play more than this lot at that point. I was even thinking, would these managers...
Swap.
Yeah, if they swapped...
Because Sheffield Wednesday probably would take Michael Duff, right?
It'd be a case of, arguably, they'd be better fits. I'm not saying either would be brilliant, but they might suit better. But
yeah, they hate Michael Duff though, so...
Yeah, well, I was going to say, they must hate Cisco with his record, but, I mean, it's just a bit of a basket place anyway, isn't it, Sheffield Wednesday?
Well, you've seen what the owner said since about the fans. He's not putting any more money in now.
Yeah, like, I won't really put the price down if more people turn up, but surely it should be, I'll put the price down and I'll keep it down if people turn up, is what it should be, isn't it? But, yeah, I mean, if you're having your own name put, like, built into the stand as well, like with the seats and stuff.
It's the Vincent Tan thing again, isn't it? It's an ego trip.
Yeah, it feels like it, doesn't it? But I mean.
But that game, Sheffield Wednesday started off a little bit of the same old, didn't it? We didn't stamp our authority on the game. We were a little bit uncertain of what we were trying to do. There were parts of it where you thought, okay, maybe we are trying to do something here, coming off that 1-1 draw a few days previously. And one man in particular who started very well, a couple of men started quite well, but one in particular I'm going to mention is Josh Anelli, who was really coming into his own and looking like a constant threat, and maybe the out ball for us, the one we give him the ball and he's going to get us 30 yards up the pitch with his pace and his trickery.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, when we signed him in the summer, it was obviously the first signing, and I was really pleased because it just felt, right now we've actually got like a player that can play wide here with pace. Yeah. Which is something that we were crying out for. I know obviously we didn't see a great deal of him in the early games, and he was playing a bit more centrally. But obviously now in this game, he was playing out wide, and obviously won us the penalty, which we desperately needed, really, didn't we? We just needed a goal to get up and running. I mean, if we conceded first, it would have been a disaster, wouldn't it?
I think it was at that teetering on the edge there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
After the results before, Cardiff was still fresh in the mind, even though we played since, and a chance to settle the nerves and perhaps quieten a little few of the boos.
Yeah, exactly. I think for both teams, really, it did feel like a bit of a 6-pointer, didn't it? I mean, you sense that if there was a loser, the manager of that team might not last much longer, and obviously that is what's happened, isn't it? So, you know, I think if it had been us, it would have been big trouble for Duff. So, you know, we just think when you're low on confidence like that, the first goal is everything in the game, and luckily for us, they were a bit dull in terms of tugging back. Janelli and gives us a pen. Jamal Lowe, to be fair, sticks it well nicely.
I was surprised he took it. At that time, he was first, and Grimes had taken one a couple of weeks earlier in the cup and stuck that away top corner like postage stamp.
You'd have thought Yates might fancy it being a striker as well, but he didn't.
Play to him.
I was going to say Yates didn't miss one against us last year, didn't he, for Blackpool? Don't know if you remember.
Right. Andy Fisher saved it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, which, I can't wait to ask. It wasn't. I remember it not being
a good save.
I'm just going to say, I remember it not being a pen that was in the corner. But look, if the keeper goes the right way and saves it, look, it's a great keeper. It's a great save. No denying it. But
you said that with gritted teeth, man.
It wasn't a brilliant pen, but look, if a keeper saves it, you're delighted, isn't it? And it was a convincing save. I wouldn't say it was a lucky save.
I think Bender saved one almost identical to it, didn't he, in the same season?
No, Bender made a great save at West Brom, didn't he, if you remember?
Yeah.
Because it went down the middle and he saved it with his leg.
Well, it wasn't
and
that
he raised
like
his
the
leg.
Blackpool one where he kind of went down the middle and Fisher saved it with his leg, didn't he?
I thought it went slightly one side and he saved it. I could be wrong. But either way, look, he saved it, didn't he? Which is what matters. But
great penalty. Stuttered run up, allowed the keeper to make his decision, stuck it away, convincing. And we started to see Jamal Lowe that we didn't see during the lockdown year. And I hold my hands up to this, even if we've looked at other things and said why things have changed. I said from the off with Jamal Lowe, he did not convince me at all during Steve Cooper's time. I thought there was a mad stat going around that him and Ayew never assisted each other, despite playing the whole year up front together. Is absolute bonkers, which showed the disjointedness of the attack at the time. Score one and defend for your lives, really. But yes, it was to see him since he's come back, Steve, and how he's played with that energy and drive. He's like a man on a mission. I really like this Jamal Lowe.
Yeah, he's making a difference, isn't he? And now in light of obviously Janelli picking up the injury, which we haven't discussed yet, I mean, he's even more important, isn't he? Because he is one of the rare players now who's got any pace. So he has done really well. I mean, look at it for the third goal. I mean, he did
what a control that is.
I mean, the control and the pass, it was brilliant. And if I'm honest, I didn't really think he had that in his locker, but he did really well there. He's making a difference. I've got to say, I wasn't hugely encouraged about it, but I did also think it wasn't a bad move based on he had a year left on his contract. There probably wasn't a loan fee. The wages would be low, and in next summer, if he's done well, he can come in for nothing, can't he? So it's a case of he had a point to prove, didn't he? I think the fact he came back here, he did say, didn't he, I've got unfinished business. So and he's playing like somebody who does. So Lowe is being encouraged, and he's making a difference, I've got to say.
Massively so, and I think one of the big components of Michael Duff's play is, and we spoke about this from day one, the high press. We haven't seen it nearly enough from any of the midfielders or attackers since we come in. Yates and Cullen have struggled together to put the pressure on the back line enough to win the ball back. Lowe's there as well, and we've already seen, if we take was it Millwall? What game was it he robbed the ball? Norwich.
Yeah.
Was it Norwich at home he robbed the ball, didn't he? And we've seen how that high press can work if you've got the players in there to win it. So hugely impressive, and I hold my hands up there. So far, I'm so very wrong on Jamal Lowe, and but that first half was uninspiring, to be honest.
It was, and to be honest, I remember Sheffield Wednesday were on their manager's back, and I remember a lot of our fans were still on Duff's back.
I did hear a few boos at half time.
Yeah, and I think there was a chance of Michael Duff, your football is shit, because I think Sheffield Wednesday were doing it about their manager, but then I think once we got the second, which was a nice turn and finish from Yates.
Yeah.
Obviously, the third has followed quickly, and it's a different game then. I remember we were playing quite well then. The confidence was up a little bit. Obviously, their heads were down because they've been struggling really badly, and you could sort of sense that maybe this was going to start an improvement. I mean, I still wasn't hugely encouraged, if I'm honest with you, but you can only beat what's put in front of you, can't you? And on this occasion, maybe the fixture list did us a bit of a turn, and we got a much needed win against a poor side. But it's never going to do your confidence any harm, is it? So, yeah, it just gave us something to build on
as well.
Yeah, and that,
which is something we've carried forward as well, because we were still leaking goals, like we talked about.
Yeah,
changing from the back five to the back four, which has been massive in that, and credit to everyone who's come together to make that happen, because I feel like we could have called this podcast for the last 2 years the 4-4-2 podcast, because the amount we've said get to 4 at the back is boring me, to be honest with you. So to see us do it and do it well is absolutely what we want to see. But ultimately, to come away with it with a win, I remember I was walking out to the stadium, and there was Sheffield Wednesday fans walking amongst the Swans fans singing, we're going down, we're going down, we're going down, and then saying, you're going down straight after it. Because I think the general feeling after that game, despite the second half where we played better, was a game between two really poor teams on the day. And we were the better of the two poor teams. And I don't think that's an unfair assessment, even though we did run out comfortable winners. There was large parts of that game where we did leave a lot to be desired. But we take the win, we take a much needed 3 points away to the Den, and we see if we can do anything with that and let the confidence boost and build something from it. And boy, did we do that.
Yeah, I think one of the old cliches of the Den being a difficult place to go and all this type of thing, but got to say we did really well down there, and it was quite a surprise. It's become a happy hunting ground for us. We've won on 5 of our last 7 visits. I mean, I think before that we hadn't won there since 1930 or something, so you'd have to say that we are, we're certainly doing quite well there, and it's a positive. But I wasn't expecting that. I've got to be honest with you. I think you were probably the same. I mean, to go there and win 3-0 is a brilliant result, really. So, yeah, I didn't think we started necessarily brilliantly, but then the move we put together before we got the penalty was really encouraging. There was loads of passes, and then it didn't look like the ref was going to give it, but the linesman did, and then...
Well, he was never going to just give it, was he? Yeah. Because he's having to give the Swans a decision, which is something the refs struggle with. So
exactly.
He did eventually come to his senses. Yeah. And give the penalty a clear tug, wasn't it?
It was, and it was Lowe stuck it away well again, didn't he? So 2 from 2 for him. Encouraging.
The second one is another drum that we've been banging for years. You can't win the raffle unless you buy a ticket. Right?
Yeah, I think if you're in a decent position to shoot, isn't it? And they're on the strong foot, for example. I mean, Grimes does have a decent shot on him, but doesn't take it on often enough. Although, as much as it was a good hit, I think...
It was a defensive...
I was going to say, keeper. I think the keeper should save it, yeah.
But even if he does save it, it bounces just in front of him.
Well, that's the clever thing about it.
Spill it out there.
So arguably that's why the mistake probably came, isn't it?
It was a good hit. Yeah. It was enough to score, which was a massive goal at the time of the game where Millwall were trying to get back into it. But how many times we've seen us get into the position 20, 25 yards out centre to goal and pass it out wide, and I'm thinking, what are you hoping for here? Who is this massive target man you'll think we've got on the box? Because obviously the big Ukrainian is not that often on the pitch, so you're looking at it thinking, when we're in open play, for sure, why are we playing it out wide so much to...
Well, the main thing for me is that when we're playing it out wide then, we're crossing in the air, and I'm thinking...
Well, that's what I mean.
In that we don't have the height.
Exactly.
So you're thinking, well, we're not really going to score from those situations. I mean...
Centre to goal.
Yeah, you've got
to
be a bit more realistic about it, haven't you? I mean, there's nothing wrong with putting the cross in, but make sure it's on the floor. Yeah. Don't put it in the air unless you've got the height there. It's different when you've got a corner, and you might have Cabango or Darlin or something like that comes forward, but... Yeah, in general, going forward, unless Kukarevich is playing, then, I don't really understand why we're trying to cross in the air. So.
And he did come on and did do just that, getting the third, which I'm chuffed for him for. I do think he's coming for a lot of undue stick since arriving. Whether he's the manager's favourite, I think it's fair to say he hasn't lit up Duff's eyes so far because he's not getting enough time on the pitch. But whenever he is on the pitch, I always think something's about to happen with him. A couple of times he's come close with quick turns and flash volleys over the bar and things, and I'm thinking, if he's got that to his game, plus the obvious physical element to his side where he's tall and he's a little bit more imposing than the other strikers we've got, he nods in the third year, it's game over, it's another 3-0 win for the Swans, and it's a happy journey home for you.
Well, I was staying overnight, so yeah, happy night first.
Night out, yeah.
Very expensive one, as there always is in London, but yeah, look, that was a great goal. I mean, we don't score many goals like that at all, do we, really, when you think about it?
And Low, again, central to it, winning the ball, driving, and playing the, what they call it now, pre-assist or something, bollocks like that.
Yeah, exactly. And, Key has put a great ball in, to be fair, and, as a centre-forward's dream if you're a big man, isn't it? A ball like that, and, a great goal, and it rounded it off. We were very comfortable then, and a lot of the home fans were walking out by that point, so... Yeah, a really good win that, and I think, that was the one that Duff really needed. I think, wasn't it? I mean, I'm not saying he didn't need the 1 week before, but that one just sort of lifted that pressure to the point where you think, well, you're not going to get fired now in the immediate future. So
my thoughts on Sheffield Wednesday were almost to a point of irrelevance from Duff's perspective, because I don't think Duff would have won anyone over by beating Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly.
However, by losing to them, I genuinely think we might be in a spot of bother this season as a club. Yeah. As Sheffield Wednesday appear to be some sort of fodder in this division. They're going to finish low.
Well, it'd be an amazement now if they didn't go down, I think, wouldn't it? Like, you're looking at it and thinking it would take a Neil Warnock type rescue act, but Neil Warnock, as a massive Sheffield United fan, is very, very unlikely to go to Sheffield Wednesday. So you just think that they're probably doomed.
You'd think so. But Millwall was... again, it's one of those ones where we have done well at recently, but to go there and win so convincingly starts to win people around. But there were still doubters, and there's still a lot of people out there that would say, look, we've won 2 games against poor opposition. Let's see where we're at, because we've got Norwich City in the week, and even though they've had a bit of a hot cold time of it, everyone's expecting them to finish in and around the top 6. So, roll on to the Wednesday night, Steve, and whether Swansea City could carry on the winning run they got into.
Yeah, I think this was always going to be a tougher test than the other two, and I think, I was probably going to measure us more on this game than and the Plymouth one that was to come after it than
the first two.
Yeah, than the first two. But yeah, I mean, we couldn't have started any better, could we? I mean, a lovely move, and Jamal Lowe again, and this time from open play. And he just fancied him to score, didn't he?
Well, he this is one of some about 5 minutes ago where he wins it.
Yeah.
Then he wins. I think a little bit of fortune with a deflection off the defender into his path, but nevertheless, he opened his body up, and that was only ever ended up in.
Yeah, it was, and I think particularly in the first 20 minutes of the game, that was a good example of it, where we were actually pressing the opposition, weren't we?
Yeah.
It's the first time we've really seen us doing that, and it was, you could see it was making a difference, and that was one of the things really that's encouraged me over the last couple of games. I think we're doing stuff like that better, or in some cases we were barely doing it. So we just looked like a far better side, and I know obviously confidence is up when you're winning or you have been winning, but I mean, I was really impressed by that first 20 minutes or so. I thought we played some really nice stuff, and we just looked probably a lot better than we had in any other game, didn't we? And and as you say, we scored a nice goal as well, so we were winning.
Right, so the disappointment was Norwich scored from their first real attack,
or
their first real chance, where they got a bit of fortune to get that. Ball comes back and it gets deflected into the path of Sarah in the middle, and he nods past Rushworth back where it came from, and they're level, and you're thinking, right, okay, now we've got a game on our hands. But to be fair, there wasn't a point in that game where I thought we were underperforming. There was a large part between what we would say maybe a half-hour mark, Steve, and maybe the 65th minute mark, where they dominated Norwich.
We looked tired, didn't we? That was the main thing with it.
Trying, was it, from our point of view? They were just more aggressive in the attack than us.
Yeah, I did just feel we were a bit leggy. Like we'd obviously had some we had some injuries, and the team had largely stayed the same. And I was thinking that with us really, we look a little bit tired, and as if we're sort of hanging on to a 1-1, but made a couple of changes, didn't we? I think Ollie Cooper was one that came on.
Yeah.
And we seemed to have a little bit of a second wind after that, didn't we?
That was most confusing, because we did, for 20 minutes of the second half, look like we were hanging on in there, and Norwich did start creating a few chances, and you're thinking this is going to end up in the back of the net, and then we're really struggling because we're already puffing. But that last 20 minutes of that game, Steve, we were the better team, and I think over the balance of it, no one could begrudge us winning the game, because Norwich were very much out of the picture for the last 20 minutes, where we were pressing and created a few goal-mouth scrambles, a questionable block on the line with the hand or upper chest, wherever it was.
Yeah.
But you're looking at it and you're thinking, where's this come from?
Yeah, that was what was really encouraging. I think just the way we've ended. I mean, you wouldn't... You know, at the end of the day, we were playing a good side, one that's got a far bigger budget than what we've got.
And they had all the momentum.
And the momentum was with them, and we managed to wrestle it from them. And not only halt it, but the momentum went in our direction then.
Yeah.
So that was really encouraging, I felt. And then, you know, eventually we did manage to get a goal. It was a scramble, wasn't it? I didn't have a clue who'd scored at the time, I've got to be honest.
No, I thought it was low, but lower the initial shot.
Yeah.
And then, have you seen it back?
Yeah.
What a hit it was.
Yeah, it would have taken someone's head off if they were in the way. But
tell you what, it's a striker's finish.
It was...
He took that under his control and rifled that half volley into the... He's smashed it. The defender's got a head to it, but he's lucky he could only deflect it into the net, Steve, because he would have been in some pain if he'd got a full face on that.
Yeah, exactly. And but we had 20 odd shots in that game, didn't we? I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah,
you can't deny that. I mean, if you're getting that many shots in most games, you're bound to be successful. You'd have thought. I mean, you're just giving yourself so many opportunities to score. And I know a few of them came from the scramble, like that one where we got the winner. But yeah, it was a night where I think a lot of people probably were one round, I would say.
So this was the one for me. People who listen to this podcast weekly or when we can record them will remember one of my biggest gripes about Michael Duff, and no, indeed the Swans this season, wasn't ever that Michael Duff wasn't good enough. And I remember saying this to you, it's not that Michael Duff isn't good enough. We haven't played Michael Duff football at all this season. There's been no high press, there's been no intensity. We haven't been recycling the ball quick enough or pressing or trying to win it up high. This was the first time that we saw that throughout periods of the game. And I thought, this looks like what I expected a Michael Duff team to look like, which was probably the most encouraging bit of all.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because it was quite, even compared to the other wins that we'd had, we'd not really seen, those parts of our game really, had we? No. So, like you say, definitely the most encouraging thing. And I think, I do think a lot of people would have, even if they hadn't changed their mind, would have certainly become more for Duff after this game. I think, from my point of view, it certainly was a case of, okay, I can see things now that are positive. It's not just that we've had a couple of wins against poor sides. I can see there is genuine progress, a game plan, which I didn't think there was about a month ago. And as far as I'm concerned, we just carry on going now, and just want to see more of the same, don't we?
Yeah, and this is, so if we can't play, and the players won't play Michael Duff's style of football, then he has to go. And then you start to see it, and you're thinking, well, this is something I can buy into, because no one can have watched the last two games and say that they don't think that this one's... Some will, we won't name names, some will, but the vast majority of sensible Swans fans will look at that and think, we've had plenty of shots, we've pressed the opposition high, we've attacked with pace, intensity, aggression, and we are scoring goals regularly. That became our 7th and 8th goal in 3 games. And that was a sign there that things are starting to turn around. Could we take it to home park and beat Plymouth? They have been a bit up and down recently, but they did have a cracking win the other week. And you thought, well, are they going to halt the run? And we went there, and would you believe an ex-player scored against the Swans? That never happens, does it?
Yeah, but it wasn't the one we thought it would be.
It was always going to be an ex-player, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Not a great goal that we conceded, if we're being honest with you. I mean, Cundall, not really known for goal scoring either, was he? I mean, I think everybody thought Morgan Whittaker would be the one, but he wasn't. But we weren't great in the first half, were we? I wasn't convinced, I'm not going to say we were convinced. I wasn't entirely optimistic on a Plymouth, just because I felt that we'd had those couple of injuries. We were playing the same team again. We played Wednesday, Plymouth had played Tuesday. You put it all together and just think, well, look, we're bound to be a little bit tired here. And I probably would have made a couple of changes. I probably would have been thinking, Fulton start this one. Does Ollie Cooper maybe come in? Just to freshen things up a little bit, because it can be a grueling league, this one. And, so the first half wasn't very encouraging, but look, we came back again, didn't we? And it was a great win, you have to say, in the end.
Oh, it was good. It was fab. I wasn't as discouraged about the first half, but I was looking at it thinking that it was a little bit bitty, but we were still putting together some nice patches of play. So you could see that where before we didn't have a game plan or confidence, we at least had the confidence to try things this time. And whilst we didn't necessarily get at Plymouth in the way that we would have liked to in the first half, I mean, we had to give them an element of respect and credit for that. We did come close on a couple of occasions to scoring, but likewise, at the start of the second half in particular, Plymouth could have sealed it. And then once again, another mention to Carl Rushworth, who, despite having so few clean sheets this season, possibly is already a top 3 nominee for Player of the Year, because he is constantly making absolutely incredible saves. Did one we didn't mention against Norwich as well, from the corner of the box where he tipped it over the bar. In every game he seems to make
one smashed him in the face at Millwall, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That was another one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Rushworth is one of those that's worth quite a few points a season, I think.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
been making some really good saves, and look, he looks even better, obviously, because of the situation that we were in last year, where obviously the goalkeepers were costing us points. So we needed to make a
decisive move.
We had to do something there, and we have. And you'd have to say we've got a really good goalkeeper here. I mean, it's just a shame that it's a loan and it's not a permanent. But I mean,
he'll play for England. I'll say that now. I think he's the sort of player who will have a Premier League mid-table team next season. And
I'm not sure he will.
You don't think?
No, it's not to do with.
He's played for Brighton.
No, not to think it's to do with him as such. I just think that it can be difficult to be brave and to give a goalkeeper an opportunity. I think there's a chance he could be here again next year. Do think that, or it could be a case of, I don't know,
a relegated team or something.
Well, or I suppose someone like Ipswich went up. I think their goalkeeper's quite good, but listen, if a team like that goes up, they might go, well, we could take Rushworth as
someone who's watched him this year.
Yeah, it could. But I do. The fact is, as a goalkeeper, you want to play, don't you? There's only. And it's not like you play 2 strikers or anything like that. It's one goalkeeper, as we know. So I think
it isn't one like an outfield player where you can chop and change.
No,
not many managers do it. They could give a goalkeeper 5 or 6 poor performances before you change it.
Exactly. So that's why I do think there is a chance he could be here again next year, because they're not going to want him to sit on the bench. Brighton just spent 20 million on a goalkeeper. I mean, they haven't spent 20 million on a goalkeeper for Carl Rushworth to then become the number 1 next season. I don't think. So I think he will be out somewhere on loan again. We would have a chance of having him again, I think.
Like a West Ham or someone like that. I can see him there. I can see him at a small
maybe,
club.
but they've got 2 experienced good goalkeepers, haven't they?
Yeah.
So this is the problem. Most clubs, I think, have got good goalkeepers. I don't really see a particular opening, if that makes sense. I mean, even Everton are struggling, but they've got the England number 1 goalkeeper, haven't they?
Yeah.
As an example. So I think it is a difficult one. So I think he could well be certainly in this division again next year. I mean, you look at, I know Woodman had 2 seasons here. I think Rushworth is a better goalkeeper than him, don't get me wrong. But I think he could be here again next year. It's not as simple as him going up to the Prem, I don't think, at this stage. But look, we'll see. We're a long way off that. Luckily enough, we've got him for this year at least, and he's making a difference, isn't he?
He is. So it was fabulous to see him once again keep the score down at that end of the pitch, because it made all the difference at the other end. And guess he's a little bit like Marmite, Liam Cullen, isn't he? I think some people aren't really bought into him, but others can see what he offers, and he always gives something. He almost scored our only real chance in the first half, that nearly sneaked in the bottom corner, and in the second half he did a fantastic peel off the back post from Patterson's diagonal ball. He's nodded it across the goal, and Jerry Yates is there waiting to mop up, as all good goal scorers do, and the game's turned on its head in the space of a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think with Cullen, I think obviously he's not a wide player. He's playing there because we're short now at the moment, obviously, and like he's doing it to the best of his ability. He's someone that will work all day. His quality isn't the best all the time. He is someone though that can pop up with a goal.
Oh yeah,
certainly a poacher.
Yeah.
Like so he's playing out of position really, isn't he? But you got to say with that goal especially, I mean it's not like without it we do not score that goal. I mean he's literally, that ball felt like a lost cause to me, and he's worked to get there. Not only that, he's put it on a plate for Yates, so he's done superbly there, and that's turned the game really, isn't it? So you know, huge credit to Cullen there. I mean Yates must have been rubbing his hands thinking, well, I can't ask for more than this. It's an open goal and there's no goalkeeper in sight.
It was intelligent football play, wasn't it? Yeah. Because he knew from the angle he was at, he couldn't score, but he also had a centre half and a goalkeeper in front of him. So the only way Cullen was going to make something of that opportunity was to head it over the pair of them and hope, because if he hadn't spotted Yates, you don't know, he might not have spotted him in there, but you can hope that if I put it in that area, someone can attack it, can't they? Because the keeper's...
Well, if there wasn't anyone there, we'd have been furious. We? Basically thinking, oh, this guy now has done brilliantly here. He's put it on the plate for somebody and there's nobody there. So, yeah, look, he's done great. As far as I'm concerned, Cullen is just he's great as like a backup player. And then he can come in when...
You will never question his application.
No, never question his application. He's probably more likely to put up with that as opposed to maybe someone else that's come into the club. And again, I don't think he'd be asking for the world financially either. So, you know, I wouldn't be getting rid of Cullen. Most certainly, I think he's certainly more than worth a place in the squad. And look, he's proved his worth there. And you know, I guess for the next goal, the manager will claim the credit because it's his substitution, isn't it?
Cullen went off for him.
Yeah, he did. Cullen came off for Cooper, who within a couple of minutes we're winning, aren't we?
Yeah, I didn't think it was that long. I think it was less than a minute. Cooper was on the pitch. One of his first touches of the ball. And he brings it forward and Plymouth back off. And this is what we were talking about 5 minutes ago with Grimes' goal away at Millwall, was if you find yourself in another position, in years gone by, we'd have taken it forward to a point and then looked to see if we could retain possession by passing it sideways or out wide or backwards or whatever it might be to retain the ball. This was another example of, for now, you have to say it's something that's come from the training pitch because Grimes did it the week before. Now Cooper's got the ball 25 yards out and he's driven into the space and he's smashed a great shot past the goalkeeper.
All the space just opened up, didn't it? I think that was the thing with it. Whereas when you're in a situation like that, Grimes has played a nice ball to him. Obviously he's gone forward. But then with the way the space opened up and he's quite central to goal, you're just thinking, well, go on, I can't see another option, have a go.
Yeah.
Like that's what if I was in that position, I'm a man with very, very low ability, as you know. But you would be thinking, well, and most of your teammates are probably thinking the same, like, yeah, go on, pull the trigger.
Our best route to go.
See what happens. So, and look, it paid off, didn't it? And then it's a different game, obviously in the space of 12 minutes or whatever it was, we've gone from losing to winning, and I think the opposition were a bit shell-shocked, really, weren't they? They couldn't believe it.
It was after that, again, where I found another sign of optimism and reasons to be optimistic, because one thing that we have failed to do for so many years, the managers, the only one I could probably stand out and say not so much was Steve Cooper, but even him, we did do a lot of defending backs to the wall. We just had a very good defence and goalkeeper to help keep it out. But in terms of professionalism and keeping the opposition quiet, this again was as good as I can think of in recent times. Of we just handled the game, and our game management, Steve, was superb. And the third goal for me was a perfect example of the change in mentality between the QPR late equaliser a few weeks before and the Plymouth game. And Duff had spoken about that. Stop going into your shells when you go ahead.
Yeah, I think for years it's something I know it's wound me up, and I think you're the same.
Yeah.
The case of like when you do get an opportunity to break, you don't wait for the opposition to all get back in place and then think, right, we'll now try and score the greatest goal ever. You just think, right, well, people are out of position, and you have runners, and you think, just take bloody risks.
Yeah.
And literally, because if they pay off, it's brilliant, and if they don't, you give the ball away usually in the opposition half where they can't really do a lot of damage. So, that goal did almost remind me of a goal that Man United scored once. I think, do you remember Ronaldo scored it at Arsenal? There was about 3 passes, and it was a first time finish from just outside the box.
Okay.
It ended up going in the top corner of this case. It was a Champions League game, actually. But it was sort of like we had a similar idea with it. It was a case of we got it, and we were thinking, right, well, Patterson's in space, let's get him in. And he's looked at it and gone, right, I can see Key making a run. Right, I'm going to play the ball. And to be fair, from Pato, it was a great ball.
Yeah.
Because he's not right-footed or anything, is he?
No.
And he's taken that risk of the ball. And the sooner it can come off, like I say, the ball gets given away around by the opposition penalty box. There's no danger there, is there?
No.
But obviously, if you get it right, you could kill the game. We got it right. Key has made up great ground to get that far forward. It's a great finish, and the game's over. I mean, but I don't know why we don't try and do that. It's not going to come off all the time, but that's what you should do when you get a chance. If you get like a 3-on-3 or something, try and...
Never done it.
Yeah, try and put yourselves in, because I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
We seem to get a one... If we are losing a game, and this is one of the biggest... I'll kind of list bugbears of mine with Swans, but if we're losing a game, we seem to be unable to create those sorts of chaos situations where an equalising come from. But if we're winning a game, all of a sudden, everything's flying everywhere. We've got to goal-mouth clearances and point-blank saves and stuff just to keep the lead. And we never seem to go for the juggler to try and then go and seal the win. And that was a perfect example of how that worked.
Well, a good example as well is that we rarely leave anyone forward when we're defending a corner.
This was another one I was going to mention, actually.
Exactly. And it's a case of, look, I'm not saying you're going to score for it, but it's a fact that if the goalkeeper claims a cross and you've got a man up the pitch, particularly someone that's quite quick, you have an out ball.
And this keeper can throw the ball 70 yards.
Yes, he can. And also, if you leave 1 or 2 up there, it gets in the opposition's heads. Remember, we were talking before about West Brom, when Kurd was in charge.
Yeah.
We left about 3 forward, and they were like, right, well, we're going to have to do that now. And they were a big team that had a big threat under Tony Pulis.
Jonas Olsen back.
That's
and
right.
The other
Gareth McCauley, was it?
I
maybe?
think it might well have been McCauley, but they were going to play for set pieces. So leaving 3 men on the halfway line, they had to leave 4 back, and it meant then that their attacking threat from a corner completely diminished. And why we don't? Why?
It is an extreme thing to do, Mike, to leave 3 up. I must say, but I never understand why you don't leave 1 at least. You've got to,
I like it because in a penalty area, a goalkeeper will always want his penalty area as empty as possible. Like when you see when players defend a high line on a free kick and stuff, they want to keep it as far away from the keeper as possible because you don't want that scramble and your keeper to be lost in the players.
It's true, but West Brom could have looked at it another way and gone, right, they've left 3 up, well, we could still just leave 1 or 2 back, and then we've got 1 or 2 unmarked, didn't it?
You absolutely
so it's a gamble, isn't it? Sort of. I always think if you leave one up, the opposition are always going to leave 1 or 2 back, and they have to.
I think numbers-wise, if you consider that they'd have the corner taker out of the picture, and of course we've got the goalkeeper in the box, which they don't have, they'd have to really go 3-on-1 at the back to kind of make it worthwhile.
Yeah,
which would be suicide if we did win the ball, because of course you'd have to say that is one of the things we've spoken about numerous times, and I would be a massive advocate of us trying it again because it just completely nullifies the opposition. It certainly did that time.
It throws them, it does, doesn't it, as well? Yeah. They're a bit like surprised.
You want your keeper to be facing less players in the box coming through a crowd. He's more likely to come and claim that cross if there's only 10 players in there as opposed to 16, 17. So, yes, but you do need the players to be able to run away with the ball, the Ginellis, the Lows and the Cullens and stuff, to be able to bring the ball away, and then if you do win it and really hurt the opposition. But that is a complete segue off the game, but there are a few bugbears about the Swans, but this was one that we seemed to suss, and Michael Duff has spoken about it after the QPR game and said, I didn't like the way in which after scoring we went into retreat mode, and obviously he blamed then the lack of confidence and the lack of conviction in what we were trying to do. this was
he's never going to blame himself, is he? No. Let's be realistic about that. It's not his fault.
But this is chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it is. You know, and even if we hadn't scored from it, you know, I think that's the thing. The fact that we'd even tried it would be like, look, we're looking to, you know, take what is a calculated risk where there's not much, you know, you don't really get punished for it if it doesn't come off, and if it does, you win. So I think that's the good thing about it, and it just gives you encouragement now that next time we got a chance to break, that we will go for the juggler. We won't be thinking, oh, you know, let's not go for it, or let's go slow or anything. It'll be, right, they're out of position, let's go for it.
They did lose the ball there, right? You could say, right, well, Josh Key's out of position now, and you've got other players who are up the pitch. But Plymouth would still have had to have scored a goal 80 yards from our goal.
I mean, by the time Key would have got back, you
would have thought that would
still
be an impressive goal, wouldn't it?
By the time they got like far forward, unless they launched it, Key would probably be back, or if someone like Fulton would just slot in when they would have thought. Yeah. That's the sensible thing to do. So
it's one of those risks where you think, well, actually, this is not as massive a gamble as you would look at it and go,
no,
we can't do this on the edge of our own box. But if we're up there and we lose it, well, they've still got to get all the way up here, and they can't pump it because we have the likes of Darling and Cabango.
But also, it's not really the Plymouth style, is it? If you know what I mean? You could tell they were trying to play like nice football, particularly in the first half. I think maybe they, you know, obviously it's a jump, isn't it, coming up another division, so maybe they're maybe a little bit short in some ways, but you could tell they were certainly a side that wanted to get the ball down and play.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, and the icing on the cake, really. Few notable mentions. We've mentioned Rushworth. I mentioned Harry Darling earlier on, who has really come onto his own. The man who couldn't really get much game time under Russell Martin when he came here. He wasn't the favoured, and when he did come in, he was like covering Latibaudiere at right back, and it was tough for him. And he even started this season for me poorly. I mean, we were away at West Brom when he conceded the penalty, and again we were in the back five then. Since we've gone to the four, I think he's really come into his own. Another player I want to mention, who I didn't think I'd mention again in a Swansea shirt of having a run of really inspiring form, is Jamie Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, he's had I don't really know what to say about Pato. I mean,
a second coming.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that. I mean, he's stepped up, doesn't he? He's a funny one. I mean, can we really trust him to carry it on? I suppose is the thing. You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Because he's making a big difference. And I mean, that ball the other day really was superb, wasn't it, for that final goal at Plymouth? But look, let's hope he can, because we saw it, didn't we, when he first came here? Could be a real difference maker, and I think he's got the potential to be a real crowd favourite down here.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing with it. So I just really hope that he does carry it on. And I mean, you don't want it to think of a case of, you know, he gets rewarded at some point with the contract and then things go badly again. So he's going to put us in a tricky situation, I think, if he carries on the way.
Sure, yeah.
He is, isn't he? But let's hope we end up in it, because I'd much rather have that dilemma than the one of thinking, oh Christ, we're wasting money on him and he's not playing and we're waiting to get rid of him. So yeah, look, Pato has stepped it up. Great. I really hope it continues.
Yeah, for sure. And that was 4 wins from 4 going into the international break. An international break that in the end, Steve, we really kind of needed, because we've got an injury list and we've got players mumped up on there that we could do with giving them an extra. In fact, the players who aren't injured could do with a week or two off. It's because of the way they've pretty much all played over the last 3 or 4 weeks, have an opportunity to recharge those batteries. But some concerning long-term injuries in the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on Janelli, haven't we? That's a big loss. You know, please retire the number 11 shirt. I've had enough. It's just beyond now. I mean, to lose him for a season is a real gutter, and you know, what can you say? We wish him well, but then you're looking at Joe Allen. Obviously, I know he's barely played the season, in truth hasn't played anywhere near enough since he came back, and sounds like that's 3 months. I mean, there's got to be question marks, I think, over Joe Allen's long-term future now, isn't there? I mean, you know, is he ever going to get fit again? I mean, it pains me to say it, because I think Joe, if he's fit, is still someone that will more than do a job for us. And I think it's been really unlucky, because at Stoke he did play 41 of the 46 league games, I think, during the season before he came back. So that did suggest that we wouldn't have a problem. But I mean, he can't stay fit, can he?
Critically, we mismanaged his injury just before the World Cup.
Yeah, no, that hasn't helped. So it's definitely not Joe's fault. It's it's one of those things, isn't it? But you just feel like now it's, it's something new all the time as well, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, at Cardiff, we could have really done with him, couldn't we? And he'd have been gutted. There's no doubt about it. The fact that he pulled up in the warm up, but there's different injuries with him all the time, and it's concerning, isn't it? I've stuck up for him, but
last season, I can see him, like doing his coaching badges and maybe trying to feel his way into the club coaching scene that way. But and he's obviously we've done that with many people before at the club, and I think he'd be more than welcome to do the same here because he's got a lot to offer. But even if he does to be around as well,
even if he does stuff behind the scenes, he could be. Doing the co-commentary on Swansea TV, he could join doing that, couldn't he? Or the stuff, the behind the scenes with hospitality. I'm sure it'd be ridiculous to not make use of him in certain ways. And he could go into some punditry, couldn't he? Doing Radio Wales and all this type of other stuff if he wants to do. We don't know what. We don't know what Joe wants to do. I mean, does he want to do coaching or does he want to do something else? But I mean, he must be thinking it himself now. It must be so draining picking up these niggles all the time and just it's concerning. It's a shame it's going like this because I still think Joe is more than capable for us, but if he can't stay fit then what can you say, isn't it? But I hope I'm wrong on this one, I really do, but I mean the longer it goes on you just feel that I'm not, unfortunately.
Mentioned Ginelli and the number 11, it just have a look at the last 20 or so number 11s we've had if you aren't aware of it, and how
since we moved to the stadium, innit? Because Forbes did well and scored the last goal of the Vets was a winner, and then a winner the week after at Bury to keep us up. Then he got injured early the next season. Since then that number is a bloody disaster. Literally. There's even been ones that have done okay in it but have underachieved, if you know what I mean. No one has excelled in it.
Players who moved into that shirt who didn't necessarily get injured, like Scott Sinclair, like Darryl Duffy.
Mark Gower went the other way, didn't he? He realised
he changed the number and improved immeasurably. But there's a whole list of players who just had the worst times of their careers whilst being a Swansea number 11. Look into it. I'm sure, in fact, Steve's done an article about it. I think you'll probably be able to find that online. It's an incredible run of bad luck with it, and I do say, and we did say this last time it came around, I think it might have been when Ginelli signed and he got injured straight away in the first warm-up session, didn't he? Just what harm would it do just to not give anyone that number? Because really, it doesn't change a thing, but it stops this bloody thing happening. It might just start happening to number 13 or whatever, but at least this thing can stop going on where you get number 11 shirt, and I think at this point, Steve, you're waiting for it, aren't you?
Well, it just feels inevitable now, doesn't it? I think the last straw was the year with COVID where Gibbs White took it, and I thought, wow, that's a really good signing. And then he only played half a dozen games, didn't he? And then Jordan Morris took it.
Yeah.
And played about 2 and then did a crucial, and you're just thinking it's just a disaster.
And obviously Gibbs White, they let him come work his way back to fitness here and then recalled him. As soon as his first game back, they recalled him. Jordan Morris actually had a really impressive game the day he got injured and then did his cruciating, and we never saw him again. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, really. So the international break, Steve, could be a blessing, not just for those injured, but those who've been playing every game as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one because you always think when you've won 4 in a row, you don't really want to break, you want to carry on. But I do think in this case it might not be a bad thing because, we've, like you say, we in certain positions certainly we've been a bit short. A lot of players have had to play a lot of minutes, and I just think it'll give a few of them a chance now who've had knocks. Maybe Cabango will make a return, will he, after the break, for example. So let's hope that is the case, really. And it just gives people a little bit of a break, doesn't it? I mean, it's a rigorous league. I think I remember saying before we played Cardiff, the fact that we did then have, whatever it's called, 6 games in 22 days or whatever. I think you're going to get a similar type of thing now when we come back again. It's just, it's so intense, this division. I mean, you don't get much break. I mean,
I think this is the worst because the Premier League only play 38 times a year.
Yeah.
The League One and League Two don't stop for international break.
That's right.
So we have the 46 game season plus those international breaks in between, which just means every game gets crammed into.
Yeah, so it's a fact of, like I said, no game for 2 weeks here, and obviously we don't have many internationals anymore when you think about it, do we? I know Cabango would be in the squad. There's only Cooper maybe.
So they are getting a rest.
Yeah, it is. But it's always the thing of, like, for 3 weeks or however long it is now, we need you to be proper on it and all this type of thing, and then you get your 2 weeks off. I mean, it's a little bit like...
Or you would rather just play one game a week and just keep that steady fitness going.
Really, it's a little bit like where people go away to work sometimes, don't they? And they barely have a day off because they're away, and then they get like a prolonged period at home, and it's almost like that's what you're asked to do, isn't it? At championship level. But then once we get into, after the international break in November, I suppose, once there's a few games, it does calm down a bit then, doesn't it?
Until Christmas.
Until then, the obvious at Christmas you get a lot, but I mean, it always feels like at the start of the season you get every 4 to 5 weeks you get a break, but you're just getting games crammed in on you, so it is what it is.
League is one of the best leagues in Europe. I think that's been talked about for many years now, but it is absolutely grueling and probably one of the toughest as well. It is the international break, which means we are going to do what we said we'd do at the start of the season, which is review the new manager, because we did say give him until October and then we'll say it, because he came in and there was a fair portion of the club, fans rather, who were less than pleased with the appointment, thought of him as a little bit more of a traditional football manager as opposed to this new age cool manager that had gone before him, kind of thing, with his innovative ideas and stuff like that. Michael Duff was more of a kind of, first things first is hard work. Forget about the fancy stuff. Hard work, and everything else comes afterwards. If I'd asked you this question 2 weeks ago, it'd be something completely different. But how do we assess Michael Duff's first few months in charge?
Well, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because obviously the start was bad. Being I called for his head, I can't say anything else. But look, I've still, I think want to see how things play out. But the fact is, things have improved quite drastically. So it's now a case of he deserves time to carry on and see what happens, really. So, I think we've certainly the last 2 games we've seen steps forward, things that I've liked to do with pressing, and then where the fact that we are looking to play the more ambitious passes. We proved with the winning goal the other day and
getting lots of shots away.
Yeah, and the fact is, as we said in the summer, we had done some good business in the transfer market, and it was good. Like there is depth there in most positions now, not out wide obviously because of the injuries that we've got, but I think we're in a reasonable position now. I mean, I'm not saying that this run is going to continue for too long or anything like that, but I think there was genuine fears of relegation, and I think now I'm quite relaxed that we won't go down. So that's always the first aim, and we'll sort of see how we go, won't we? But the next spell is going to be tough. I mean, Leicester we've got next, for example. They're running away with it, really, aren't they? And then before the next international break, we've also got Ipswich, haven't we? So that's
to be fair, you say running away with it. Yeah. Those two are running away with it, aren't they? Because
they are.
Ipswich are hot on their heels.
They are. So those 2 games, for example, are going to be challenging. We've got Watford, who are not doing great, but they're on parachute payments. They've got a bigger budget than we have, haven't they? So, look, there's some tricky games to come in the next cluster, but look, the main thing is we've got some good points on the board now. We've got a nice little cushion towards the bottom, and confidence is up. So, we're looking better, and there's reasons to be encouraged, and the manager has managed to dig himself out of a hole, and but that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I think he's done what he said, or other people have said, would happen when he arrived. He came in and he took his time to turn things around to the way he wanted to play, and this is what we saw against Norwich and Plymouth is kind of what I was hoping for when we signed him in the summer as a manager, to see the press, to see the intensity in the off the ball work as well, which is something we struggled with so poorly in the last few years. To come into that and actually show us be aggressive and resolute at the back. To also that sort of invention and willingness to try something that won't necessarily result in a goal, but will give us the opportunity if it comes off. I mean, that's the difference, isn't it? Is taking the risk, and because if it comes off once in 3, Steve, it gives you a goal which wouldn't have come around otherwise.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've listened to Paul Scholes doing punditry before, and he was talking about players playing safe passes and this type of thing. We said if you play the risky one, it won't always come off, but when it does come off, it's like you could be in a one-on-one situation, and that's really what Key was in on the weekend, wasn't it? So I think it's always about that, and you'd rather that see your pass percentage completion dip because you're making these type of things instead of a case of, right, I'll just keep playing the safe ball. I mean, there's a time and a place, isn't there? I think sometimes you have to learn. You have to learn when to play the more ambitious one, or if a case of think, well, it's not on, so I'm going to keep it, and then wait for something maybe to, try and build up a move or wait for an opening. But yeah, I think it's a case of if you see an opportunity, just play it, because if you get it right, then great, and if you don't, you tend to give the ball away in an area where it doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, it's hard because it does look like, if you took the history, as I said at the start of the podcast, of the Barnsley and Cheltenham spells, then history does look at the face of it to be starting to repeat itself here, in that he did have a very slow start and really struggled with a lot of the fan base, and said some questionable things to the media and all that horrid stuff that was being leaked in the background as well. So to see the turnaround has been quite remarkable. Long may it continue, because it's the best. It's the best for everyone, and seeing us play with that kind of they play with a smile on our faces again, because the players are looking like they're enjoying this kind of attacking style of football now, and crucially, whereas we've perhaps faltered on this in the past, we're looking so much more no-nonsense the other end.
Yeah, we are, and that's why we've got to be encouraged, really, isn't it? I mean, we've talked a lot about us going forward, but defensively it's looked a lot better, and you conceded 3 in the last 5. So, and as you singled out a few for praise, that Rushworth has done really well, as you say, and Darling's improved. McKee's been really good since the season started, isn't he? I mean, Humphreys is now gaining in confidence all the time, and yeah, it's looking good. And obviously we haven't even touched on the fact that Wood is out injured for a while, and that's a big loss, isn't it? So,
yeah,
we couldn't have coped with these injuries last year, I don't think, could we?
No.
I know we were without Allen, really, for a lot of last year, and we were okay there, but in the centre of midfield, we have got a lot of options, haven't we? But yeah, I think in the other positions, we'd have had big problems if we had long-term injuries. So, yeah, the good thing is now we have options to make sure that if we have injuries, we're okay. So, look, there's plenty to be encouraged about at the moment, but let's just hope it doesn't go a case of we go from a good run to a bad run again, because that seems to be a theme, doesn't it, over the last 18 months or so.
It does, but we never had this kind of blueprint to work on before, where we were told it will start slow and then it will pick up, and once it picks up at Barnsley and Cheltenham, they kind of stuck with it then, and they went forward and kind of pushed on. And I'm just showing you on your laptop there the 5 subs that came on against Plymouth, and this is after that lengthy injury list which we've spoken about. Jay Fulton, Ollie Cooper, Harrison Ashby, Kukarevich and Liam Walsh, whose long-awaited return. There's 5 people there that would potentially have started in other circumstances.
Well, the way of looking at it is, if everybody's fit, then certain people are not getting on the bench, are they?
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, Joe Allen got injured in the warm-up at Cardiff. I think Kukarevich was the one who wasn't on the bench initially, and then ended up on the bench as a result. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's got to be a good thing for us. It feels now like there's depth. If someone gets injured, apart from maybe out wide because of the injuries that we've had, you are looking at the bench and going, oh, there is actually a replacement on there, even if he's not quite as good. There's not one on there where you're looking and thinking, oh, this is a disaster. Yeah. So that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah. So we're up to date. Have you got anything else to talk about?
No, I think we'll come back next week and look at Leicester, shall we? And Watford.
Yeah, let's not look ahead to that yet. Let's just enjoy what we've seen and hope for more of the same. once we come back from the international break. It'll be a tough ask to repeat the recent form against Leicester. But it's a free shot. It's the way Leicester started the season, and no one's going to say that they're going to win every game between now and the end of the season. So we got to approach it as we've been approaching the last few games, Steve, and see where that takes us.
Yeah, exactly. Pressure off now because we've had good results and we're playing against a good side. So, yeah, I think it's sort of a test to see, how good we really are in some ways. Can we really mix it with a top team who realistically should not be in this division? They shouldn't have been relegated, should they? They were more than good enough to stay up. But they've kept a lot of their players, and look, they're going to be dangerous for everybody as they've shown so far. So it'll be an interesting one for us. But the fact is, I think a few weeks ago, this would have been sheer dread going into this game. But now I think we can all feel that we can compete with them. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I said this was the top 10 squad, and I stick with that, I think. I was never kind of worried about relegation in the sense of if it did still go south with Duff, then I was thinking, well, we'll replace Duff and we've still got a squad good enough to climb this table quickly. I'm glad the results have turned around and we've looked like that plan is coming together, and it looks really now like we know what we're doing out there, which was the big real question mark people were saying at the start of the season. So yeah, long may it continue. Join us again next week for a preview of that Leicester game down at the Swansea.com stadium, and let's take this positivity forward and see where we end up. But from myself and Steve, thanks for listening. Bye bye.